I'm going to present our research on phonetic fluency of Japanese learners of English, focusing on automatic versus human assessment and also native and non-native assessment. This is a team of this research with our best faces. Here are the contents of this presentation. The ultimate goal of this research is to develop an automatic assessment system for second language accented English. For this purpose, we assessed fluency of Japanese accented English. We tested our system with two sets of speech data, which were assessed by different groups of raters. The raters were machine and human assessment, with the human assessors separated into native English assessors and non-native English assessors. We investigated the differences in ratings by these groups. In second language phonological acquisition, elder learners need to acquire both segmental and prosodic features of the target language, which are, for example, accurate pronunciation of segments, good speech rhythm, intonation, and fluency. In recent studies of second language acquisition, it's been widely acknowledged that intelligibility of speech is more important than native likeness. Various studies showed that segmental accuracy is important for correct word recognition, but prosodic features are more important than segmental accuracy for intelligibility of speech. And prosodic accuracy, like speech timing, is valued highly by native speakers for L2 speaking proficiency. Another important aspect of speech is fluency, because fluency matters for speech intelligibility. L2 fluency is different from fluency in first language. Dowing and Monroe defined second language fluency as the degree to which speech flows easily without pauses or other disfluency markers. And native-like fluency is essential for speech interaction between native and non-native speakers, and recently also between non-native speakers. So fluency assessment is essential for evaluation of L2 speech. However, it is time-consuming to assess speech fluency of big L2 speech data, so we need a reliable automatic fluency evaluation system. It need to be as reliable as good human assessment. Now the methods. The left side of the figure in the pink box explains the system training experiment. We used 72 Japanese and 25 English speakers data from the corpus, and their fluency was assessed by 4 American raters in the box A. All 4 raters were trained to assess L2 English speech. We used the fluency scores by the 4 American raters to train the automatic speech signal analysis system. Then we trained estimated fluency scores B using the speech signal analysis system. Then estimated fluency scores B were compared with human rated scores of the same 72 Japanese speakers data by different 16 raters with varied L1 in the box C. The 16 raters were 4 native speakers of American English who were different from the 4 Americans used in the system training experiment, 4 Japanese speakers, and 8 other language speakers won each of Cantonese, French, German, Korean, Mandarin Chinese, Polish, Punjabi, and Spanish. All 16 people had phonetic training, and this is comparison 1. The right side of the figure in the blue box explains the system testing experiment. To test the reliability of the estimated fluency scores obtained by the speech signal analysis system, we calculated estimated fluency scores D of the remaining 111 Japanese speakers of the corpus. We compared these estimated fluency scores D with rating scores by the same 16 human raters as before. This is comparison 2. This slide and next slide describe what I've just explained about the method with the previous slide. Now I'm going to explain very briefly how we computed the estimated fluency scores based on the original 4 human assessment scores. First, we started the analysis with temporal segmentation of the signal using a forward-backward divergence segmentation algorithm. This method has been used for studies of second language and pathological speech to automatically extract temporal predictors of speech fluency. Step 1. The algorithm was applied to the speech signals, and the forward-backward divergence segmentation algorithm produced a subphonemic segmentation. Phones were split into different FBDS-derived segments corresponding to different articulative phases such as attack, sustain, and release of a vowel. Step 2. Next, silent breaks over 200 milliseconds were detected, and they were defined as pauses. Step 3. Then, subphonemic FBDS-derived segments were clustered to form units called pseudosyllables. Step 4. For this analysis, 4 fluency predictors were obtained on the basis of the pseudosyllables and silent break segmentation. 1. Rate of silent breaks, which means the number of silent breaks exceeding 200 milliseconds divided by the total number of words in the recording. 2. The percentage of speech, which is the duration of all pseudosyllables, divided by the total duration of the speech signal in seconds. 3. The pseudosyllable rate, which is the number of pseudosyllables divided by the phonation duration in seconds. 4. Standard deviation of pseudosyllable duration, which is usually influenced by the presence of filled pauses and hesitations in speech. Step 5. Finally, we used multiple linear regression to combine the 4 measures and the predicted speech fluency. The model was created by computing a step-by-step linear regression over the average ratings of speech fluency for the 485 sentences produced by the 72 Japanese and 25 English speakers of the training corpus. When averaging the automatic scores and human ratings as a function of the 97 speakers, The model achieved a correlation of 0.83 between predicted and automatic ratings of speech fluency. Now I'll explain the results of the system training experiment. The estimated fluency scores B were compared with human rated scores of the same 72 Japanese speakers data. As shown in Table 1, Pearson's product moment correlation coefficients of B, machine predicted perceived fluency scores, and C, human rating scores of 72 Japanese speakers data were very high for all L1 language groups. Table 2 shows the results of the system testing experiment. The correlation coefficients with new speakers were still relatively high for all L1 groups. Significant correlation was observed between the machine and human rater scores. The equality of the system training and testing correlation coefficients were tested by rater L1 groups. In other words, English native, Japanese, and other language groups. We used the Fisher R to Z transform to check for significant differences in the correlations obtained for assessment scores by the three L1 groups. There were significant differences between the three groups for the system training in Table 3A, but for system testing, the only significant difference was between the English and other language groups in Table 3B. The Japanese and other language groups didn't show any difference. In this study, we obtained positive results for our automatic fluency evaluation system for L2 English speech. Some differences were observed in correlation between the automatic scoring and scoring by each L1 human rater group for both system training and testing. The results were different from our previous study, in which English and non-native English raters gave similar ratings for fluency of Japanese accented English. The reason for the difference between these two studies may be because the native and non-native raters used different cues to evaluate fluency, and also the fluency cues used in the automatic assessment system may not be important fluency features for non-native listeners. Finally, the conclusions of this study. Correlation was observed between the automatic and human fluency evaluation scores in both training and testing L2 corpora. The automatic system's phonetic features like pseudosyllable rate, standard deviation of pseudosyllable duration, and silent breaks could reflect the human rater's sensitivity to fluency. Native and non-native assessors seem to use different phonetic cues to evaluate fluency. The automatic system needs to be tested with different speech data to validate the results. Effects of other phonetic features on fluency assessment also need to be tested. But overall, the result gave a good base to develop automatic fluency evaluation system. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you for watching. Finally, we'd like to thank to the JSPS for the grants, and also Xavier Aumont of Akan Technologies and the audience at New Sounds 2019 for their useful comments. Thank you.